"Excuse me, but you're in my light, Violet. Some of us actually know how to dress for a gala," drawled Cassandra low, her voice scraping cold marble just as she nudged past. The movement jarred Violet's balancing tray, jostling a lacquered paddle displaying Lot 37 and sending droplets of Chardonnay arcing onto her black dress. She tucked in her breath, willing herself small, but the fabric still clung. The auction house swirled around her, white-gloved staff, champagne, the honeyed gleam of gilded frames. For a moment she tried sinking behind the table's velvet skirt, willing the gazes away, pulse huffing deep beneath the vellum of her heavy frame. But the world refracted attention. Over the glossy heads a presence loomed, a man in tailored midnight standing silent, hands folded loosely atop a cane whose handle glinted silver. His profile, knife-edged and half-shadowed, was unmistakable. Even the way the crowd bent around him betrayed his rank. Don Mateo Bianc, syndicate king of North Beach, rumored to buy Picassos as easily as enemies. Cassandra flicked her hair, reasserting her smile for a circle of lacquer-nailed socialites. "Careful, Violet, not everyone can be invisible forever," the words landed. Violet steadied her breath 1, 2, 3, and with trembling fingers blotted her skirt, the action drawing Don Bianc's gaze directly to her. A bell chimed, Lot 37. Violet pushed back her hair, fingers sticky with spilled wine, and made herself move forward, straight into the heat of his attention. For a heart-stopping second, Violet's shoes caught on the ridged carpet. She nearly collided into Don Bianc as he approached, his bodyguard parting the crowd with a ripple of discontent behind him. She dropped her eyes, stammered, "I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean," words twisted, breath stuck in her throat. "Look at me," he said, voice velvet-trapped steel. He dropped it to a murmur meant for her ears only. "No one minds a little wine, certainly not me." Up close, his cologne held a whisper of bergamot and tobacco, grounding. A faint scar slashed across his jaw, pale against olive skin. Violet's pulse scattered. She resettled the register notepad in her grasp, mind counting her breaths. 1, 2. Don Bianc's gaze dipped to her hands, pausing longer than he should on the way her knuckles whitened atop the pen, how she neatly squared the bidding slips even beneath stress. He took in the tailored black of her dress, the way she didn't shrink, only composed herself. "Are you often assigned to these events, miss?" Violet Lane, I'm just a clerk for Judge Thatcher, here to notarize deeds, nothing glamorous," her voice all small apologies. A flicker of something sharpened in his gaze. "Necessary work, Violet." He plucked a crisp handkerchief from his inner pocket and passed it to her. His fingers brushed hers, electric, too brief. "You drop nothing, Violet," he whispered, eyes never leaving hers. "Let anyone try to push you." The hum of conversation ebbed as others watched, curiosity piqued by the low murmur of the kingpin speaking to a heavy law clerk. Violet's cheeks burned, but his words landed anchoring, a weight pressed steady at her back. And as he stepped aside, a space opened that belonged only to her. The next evening, Violet's assignment shifted to the country club's chandeliered ballroom. Cream linens, caviar towers, latticed laughter, the usual cosmopolitan peacocking. She managed the registration table, stamping guest lists as Cassandra swept in trailing scented frost, flanked by lesser satellites. The socialite's voice rang out, slicing the air. "Careful, she's liable to eat the centerpieces if we linger too long. Didn't you ruin Bianc's antique rug last year, Violet?" Laughter spiked, pinpricking. Violet felt heat behind her eyelids, but this time she pressed her palm flat on the table, steadying herself. "There was no rug, Cassandra," she said quietly, "and we both know florals aren't my taste." Cassandra curled her lip, eyes raking her. "Your taste is whatever you can lift off a leftovers tray, isn't it? My mother said you'd always be a charity case." She made a show of examining Violet's hips, the gesture deliberate, and a photographer's flash froze her humiliation. Before Violet could exhale, Don Bianc appeared, materializing as if conjured by her discomfort. He laid his palm on the back of her chair, steady as a fortress. Several heads turned, an undercurrent of speculation thrilled the privileged hush. "That's enough," he intoned, whisper low but lethal. He didn't shout. Cassandra's bravado flickered, not gone, but clouded by anxiety. You owe Miss Lane an apology, Cassandra. Oh, Cassandra's laugh was brittle, the sound of glass under strain. Didn't realize the Dawn was trading up for heavier assets. The Kingpin's eyes narrowed, cyanide cold but achingly calm. You wouldn't last a night picking up what she carries, walk away. At that instant, Bayank's phone vibrated. His jaw ticked. He turned, murmured to an aide, words in code, Albanian boys near Green Street, 12 minutes. Something severe swept through him, a predator checking for cracks in his kingdom. Decision barreled over the table, the event was shifting beneath their feet. He turned back to Violet, gaze locking hers. Stay close, the command was absolute. Cassandra scoffed but faded, her glare reduced. Not to be outdone, she spat, your little friend here will never be one of us. Remember that. Violet refused to let Cassandra have the last word. Fingers cool on the table's edge, she met Cassandra's gaze, voice measured. This city keeps receipts, Cassandra, even you know that. Hand gently but firmly at her elbow, Don Bayank swept Violet from the ballroom, guides shielding her from the jostling crowd as they moved into the corridor toward velvet-draped elevators, away from the clutches of venom disguised as silk. The elevator sealed them in its gold-lit hush. Don Bayank glanced sidelong as the lights descended. He held himself taut, chess pieces moving behind his eyes. Violet inhaled 1, 2, 3, centering herself. Do you escort all your clerks out like this? She managed, voice soft. He watched her, eyes dark and seeking. You're not just a clerk, who was that woman to you? Violet hesitated, bracing herself on memory's edge. She's old money. Her family's firm fights hours in probate. Her mother hates my guts. I only got this gig because I know how to seal a contract no one else touches, only ever good enough in the back office, until someone needs something done quietly. He traced the outline of the signet ring on his finger, considering her words. You like invisible, or do you just wear it? She thought it over. Sometimes it's armor, sometimes it's a cell. He inclined his head, approval flickering. I admire armor, Violet, but you're not a cell tonight. As the doors slid open, a suited lieutenant intercepted, urgent. Mateo, shipments near the wharf hit. Looks like rivals, Albanian testing our muscle. Silent alarm tripped. 45 minutes till full lockdown. Pressure crisp and biting. Don Bayank's hand lingered at the small of Violet's back, an almost intimate shield. You'll come with me. It's not safe here, Violet. She squared herself, chin up. Why me? His smile was swift and grim. I don't leave pieces of my game unguarded, not when they surprise me. He swept her through private corridors into a subterranean garage where 2 matte black SUVs idled, engines whispering threat. En route, his phone pinged again. Cassandra's name appeared with a cryptic message. Lot 37, come get it before the vultures do. He pressed the screen out of view, voice a whisper only she could hear. You have a longer night ahead, Violet. The city unfurled, neon and shadow, beneath their hurricane course to the Bayank Mansion's war room. Rarely had Violet seen so many men in dark suits crowded around a table as in Don Bayank's war room. Oak-paneled walls, antique maps, even the air was tense, laced with cigarette smoke and secrecy. A wall of monitors cycled through grainy CCTV, a live feed from the North Beach docks where syndicate muscle pressed against rival Albanians. In the commotion, Captain Franco, the Don's trusted fixer, jabbed at a tablet. Safe box inside the foreman's office, nobody can get it open. Albanian signatures all over the door, they're betting you can't crack it, boss. Don Bayank's gaze swept the room, calculating, but Violet saw him flick an assessing stare back to her, thoughtful, laced with a question. She shrank behind the crowd, unconscious hand motions tracing imaginary combinations, thumbs circling her palm. He caught the movement, Violet Lane staying, she's with me. Not everyone approved, Franco muttered. She'll be a liability, she's not built for a dock brawl. Don Bayank's glare dared contradiction. She's built for more than you imagine. Secure her, Franco. The lieutenant frowned but obeyed. Violet caught a sliver of chatter from the radio's Albanian fast, clipped accents. Trigo Casaforten sh pedged. Show the safe now. She stiffened, listening. The phrase dredged ancient memories, her grandfather's hands, thick fingers guiding hers over dials in his Brooklyn pawn shop. She stepped closer to the Don. You need the box, you can't wait. Bank studied her, then signaled Franco, bring her to the docks. The ride was a blur of adrenaline and white-knuckled silence. By the time they arrived, the air at the waterfront snapped with threat, rival lookouts in puffer jackets, rain flecking the cold steel of shipping crates. Inside the foreman's office, the safe loomed, a heavy Fort Knox clock-face dials beset by scrapes and half-melted stickers. The Albanians watched, arms crossed, chins up, Cassandra among them, suddenly changed into black leather, a snake in new skin. She sneered, didn't think you'd send your heavy maid to do the real work, Don Bank. Cassandra's voice was more than venom now, it was code. Violet realized with a start, the socialite had slipped enemy lines, facilitating Albanian entry. Behind her, a man pressed a pistol into his coat. Violet forced calm, counting breaths aloud. 1, 2, 3. Bank shot her a rare flicker of pride. Show them, he whispered, barely audible. Kneeling, Violet pressed her ear to the metal. Through the rainfall and muffled threats, she tuned to the clicks, tracing the tumblers, left 22, right 7, pause, back 3. She spun the dial as if she'd been born to it, then braced. With a final twist, the lock tripped. The safe yawned, daylight bled off a bundled stack of ledgers and flash drives. Franco exhaled, awed. Dio, she cracked it in under a minute. No torch, no blueprint. Cassandra blanched. You how? Violet rose, dignity clothed in shadow and salt air. There's nothing I can't open, not anymore. The truth sparked behind every eye. Cassandra had orchestrated rival access, hoping for sabotage that would frame Violet or lose the Don his claim, betting against the impossible clerk. Violet stepped aside, gaze direct. You're done, Cassandra. Bank claimed her before all witnesses, palm rising to cup her jaw, thumb tracing her cheekbone with lazy confidence, the gesture possessive and public. Nobody ever touches you again, Violet, nobody. Suddenly the room's power shifted. Rival Albanians recoiled, syndicate capos nodded, queen crowned. Cassandra, cornered, tried one last slur. You'll never fit in. Franco snorted, smiling sidelong. Fit! He angled his head at the open safe. She just made this city fit her. Cassandra's fate unraveled at the speed of syndicate justice. A brusque arrest by federal marshals, her mother's law firm burned out of city contracts within days. News spread through the circles, the snobby queen fallen, her treachery mapped in court dockets and alley whispers alike. The Albanian threat, exposed by ledger and flash drive, collapsed in retaliation that swept 2 leaders from the city within the week. Bank's rivals fell in swift humiliation, their every scheme upended by the woman nobody had counted among the sharks. At the Bank mansion, dawn painted the balcony in honeyed fog. Below, the city sparkled, made smaller by the storm they had survived. The Don stood near the balustrade, suit jacket off, his arm draped securely along Violet's shoulders. Capos and family filtered in, nodding to her, a silent coronation, the world recalibrating around this heavy woman who could unlock anything. Bank slipped the signet ring from his finger, sliding it into Violet's palm. These doors will never be closed to you, not in this house. Not while I breathe. She held the ring tightly, the gold warm from his skin, then raised her eyes to his, steady, unafraid. I was never meant to fit someone else's lock, she said, only to be my own key. Across the city, auction houses and courtrooms whispered a new name, Bank's queen, the heavy clerk who stole nothing but everyone's expectations. If this story made your heart pound, hit like and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next Mafia romance drop. Tell us in the comments who your favorite character was. We'll see you in the next one. Violet blinked into the sunrise, a strange quiet blooming in her ribcage where nerves had once rattled, replaced by something unyielding and real. The city before her was burnished and new, yet every block, Chinatown's neon arteries, the yawning piers, the domes gilded in old money, remained an archive of every wound and victory she'd unspooled. She turned the signet ring in her palm, the engraving biting gently into her skin, its weight a promise both tender and immense. Mateo, Don Bianc, tonight simply Mateo, watched for a moment, silence stretching easy between them. You can leave all this behind now if you want, he offered, voice rough as gravel, an odd vulnerability quickened behind his eyes. I'll protect you regardless, Violet. It doesn't have to be this if you'd rather. She laughed, a short sound light as colored glass. It wasn't the city that kept me out, it was me. My shape never fit their chairs, their stories. She slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple motion unthinkable months ago. But I'm not leaving. You made it possible for me to open the lock. I'd like to keep the room that's on the other side. He exhaled. I can't promise the sharks won't circle. She squeezed his hand, thumb tracing the veins. I know how to swim now. The city's hum far below steadied her. Voices below drifted upward as staff prepared for another gathering, Mateo's inner circle this time and Violet at the center. She felt their regard shift from tolerance to deference, the sort saved for power that could not be bought or bullied. Even Franco, who'd once eyed her with suspicion, called up a hearty, Miss Lane, coffee's better when you drink it with us. Don't let the city drink it alone, as she passed downstairs. Afternoon found her in the study, ledger open on her knees, double-checking the sequence of vault codes recovered from the safe. Mateo poured 2 espressos, set hers beside the ledger, and regarded her with a fond smirk. My accountants suspect you're already auditing their ledgers for holes. You are, aren't you? She shrugged, teasing, somebody has to do the math honestly or you'll all be in orange jumpsuits before Christmas. He grinned, full off guard. Papers spread before them, but the desk felt smaller, a tight cocoon rather than an executive fortress. Bianc watched her recalibrate amounts, fingers nimbly moving as she fixed an errant decimal. You remind me of my mother, he mused. She never left the numbers to the bosses. Figure the numbers, rule the rules. You don't have to shout to own a room. Violet's face softened. You sound proud, were you close? The moment teetered, pain, old as ash, rimmed his voice. Close as 2 people can be when you're hiding ambition behind a tablecloth. She was smarter than my father, but the world could only love her cooking, not her mind. He sank into the desk's edge, gaze gone distant. People who think they're invisible do the real work, Violet. You've done more for my world in 2 days than most in their lifetimes. She finished her audit, looked up to catch his eyes warmed with hint of unshed regret. People who stand behind do so because they know what's worth defending, she said, voice low and certain. He leaned closer, brushing a wayward lock from her cheek. The study's lamplight found traces of gold in his hair. Don't let me frighten you, Violet. When you stand with me, you inherit the whole fight, not just the glory. She held his gaze steady, impossibly unafraid. I was frightened of being seen by people like Cassandra. I'm not frightened of being seen by you, Mateo. That's a different thing. He bent, pressing his lips to her temple, soft then firm, a benediction and a promise. Before the fog of intimacy could settle, Franco burst in, almost apologetic. Don, the DA's office just served a warrant for Cassandra and half the Albanian boys, and Miss Lane, a letter was left at the gate for you. No signature. The guards say it was a kid, maybe a runner from Lower Leavenworth. Violet accepted the envelope, heart skipping in that place it still believed in old omens. Carefully, she broke the midnight blue seal, handwriting looping inside. They'll try the back door next. You know whose lock they can't pick. M. Bianc frowned, examining the paper. M, he mused, and then recognition crackled. Marcello, old friend of my father's, runs with the Serrano crew, never crossed you before, I thought, Violet supplied, her memory scanning countless probate cases. He nodded, dark concern knitting his brow. He always bets on the winner, but he never delivers a threat. He's warning us someone else is coming, someone who thinks you're my soft flank. Violet squared the ledger, a new tension pulling her shoulders upright. I know how to close doors behind me too, tell me where. Mateo searched her, pride and worry tangled in his look. Warehouse on Harrison Avenue. If they want to test our perimeter, they'll use a face no one expects. And you want me to be that face? I want you to be the lock they can't find a seam in. I want you with me, but ready to walk away if this time it gets rough. You're not a pawn, Violet. You're not even a queen anymore. You're something else. She sank her hands into his, feeling their strength and uncertainty twined together. If I can open any lock, I ought to learn when to close one too. Maybe that's the shape I've always been. The raid happened at twilight. Franco led the car, Matteo at Violet's flank, a contingent lean but deadly, crossing from matte black SUV to shadowed loading bay. The Serrano crew watched from a half-lit alcove, faces bruised by city light. Marcello himself, gaunt and rain-slick, nodded at Violet. "This the one?" His old-world cadence sounded like challenge and blessing all at once. "No one cracks a safe like you, Lane." She stepped forward. "No one else brings a clerk to a gunfight," she quipped, pulse unsteady but voice ironclad. Matteo let her stand in front, trusting her word as much as her calculation. "We're all here for the same reason," he said. "You want the city stable, I want it safe. Don't make me choose sides." Marcello pursed his lips, then flicked his gaze at a silent figure in the shadows, a boy of no more than 16 holding a battered courier bag. He stepped forward, offering Violet a small case. Inside, a single USB, data engraved with the signatures of 3 crime families, proof of a new coalition trying to muscle Banks North Beach. Marcello said, "Take it. They'll know you carried it out unharmed. That's the only piece I can offer. If you lose it, you lose the city. If you fight for it, you own it." Matteo's jaw flexed, but he nodded at Violet. "Your move." She accepted the case, weighed its heft, met both men's steady gazes. "If they want to come for us, they'll have to come through open daylight. I'm done with secrets in the dark." She raised her chin, voice resonant. "You tell them the city is closed for new owners. Send them my regards." Marcello smiled, a cat's acceptance. "A city loves a new lock, Miss Lane. Make it a good one." With the world now watching, Violet didn't flinch. She pressed her hand to Matteo's sleeve, guided them both out into golden evening, and never once looked back. Back at the mansion the following night, the circle drew tight. Matteo, Franco, new allies once foes, Violet presiding from her place at the head of the oak table. Her dress was midnight blue, shoulders uncowed, the signet ring catching every lamp's glow. Glasses clinked, laughter rose, and where once there had been hushed whispers, the heavy clerk who let her in, now there was only admiration. Franco toasted her first. To Violet, who never saw a locked door she wouldn't open, who made us believe the weight we carry is something to be proud of. Others echoed, capos and captains, and a scattering of out-of-towners who'd come to see the new order. Matteo raised his glass last, holding Violet's gaze across the candlelight. To unexpected queens, to women who changed the codes, not just the locks. She lifted hers, to knowing the difference. Afterward, as the guests filtered into conversation and the moon hoisted high above North Beach, Violet and Matteo drifted to the darkened balcony, private in the hush. Below, the city pulsed, louder, safer, its old wounds healing. "Quiet then." "Do you miss before?" Matteo asked. Violet considered, feeling the pressure of the ring, the warmth of dawn, the memory of ugliness and glory. "I miss being small sometimes, but I'd never go back. There's too much door on this side." His smile was a shadow and a promise. "You know, you could run this place without me now. Most people are a little afraid of you, even Franco." She nudged him, playful. "Don't worry, Don Bank, you can still do the speeches. I'll just rebalance the books." He brushed his lips over her knuckles. "Let them be afraid, Violet. We only needed to belong to ourselves." The city's night bells tolled, marking a future she'd not only opened, but built with her own hands. Violet Lane, the name now passed in careful awe from wharf to courtroom, from old money to midnight muscle, stood where she belonged, out of shadows into her own light. And in that space, with all locks behind her and every door unfurled ahead, she was invisible no longer. She was inexorable. She was home. Matteo's arms wrapped around her from behind, anchoring her against the balustrade as the city below twinkled with secrets only they now fully understood. His voice was the low hush of history's turning hinge. "You know, Violet, sometimes the door you open isn't the one you keep." She considered it, gaze sweeping the city's patchwork lights. "Some doors are only meant to be passed through, but this one, I think I'll stay, at least until the paint dries." He laughed deep and real, pressing a kiss to her hair. I hope it takes a lifetime, then longer. That's the plan, she answered, smile curling at the corners, fierce with quiet hope. A gentle gust lifted the edges of her dress, and in the distance the cathedral bells tolled midnight. A final wave of departures filtered from the house, Franco bidding her good night with a new deference, a last package of security reports tucked under his arm. From below, someone called, "Good night, Miss Lane," and the respect in it was absolute. She turned, facing Matteo at last. He searched her for any flicker of doubt, found none. "What now?" he asked, and for once he sounded not like a king or a crime lord but simply a man uncertain and ready to trust her lead. Violet thought of all she'd survived, of wine stains and velvet curtains, of every dig from Cassandra, of safe doors and peril and the cold certainty of her worth. She laced her fingers with Matteo's. "We keep the city safe, we dine at our own table, and when the next lock appears," her smile grew wolfish luminous, "I'll open it, or change it, or throw the key in the bay." His answering grin was pure devotion, pride, and something like freedom. "Whatever comes, we do it together." The hush spread as the last guests departed, quiet at last claimed their home. Violet let her heart settle, strong and full, no longer counting breaths, each one her own. In the city of closed rooms and secret feasts, the heavy clerk who became a queen drew her king in, and together they faced the open, unwritten night. No doors barred their way. They stepped through,